to What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander. The crossroads where culture, lifestyle, and community meet, all hosted by the legendary New York radio TV personality and proud Harlem American, G. Keith Alexander.
Thank you so very, very much. I am so happy to be here today on this beautiful, beautiful day, the last day of July. I believe it's the last day of July, July 30th. And I want you to know that wherever you are, welcome to What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander. I appreciate you for joining our neighborhood as we hang out together in Harlem, America. Today, in the What's Hot Spotlight is America's psychologist, Dr. Jeff Gardere. Now, Dr. Jeff is one of the most widely sought after experts in the field of mental health. In addition to having a private practice in Harlem, he is an associate professor and course director of behavioral medicine at Touro College of Osteopathic Medicine right here in Harlem as well. And Dr. Jeff was most recently the relationship expert on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, Love and Hip Hop New York, the Real Housewives of Atlanta, and the Real Housewives of Potomac. So it is my distinct honor and pleasure to say that my special guest, Dr. Jeff Gardere, my friend, is What's Hot. Hello there, Dr. Jeff.
G. Keith, I haven't been called hot in about 25 years, so it's great to be hot again on your great show, and so wonderful to be working with you and to see you. And people don't know that you and I are colleagues in many, many different venues. So, you know, once again, it's good to be home with you.
Well, that's so very kind of you to say. You are a very wonderful and special guy, and I am very grateful to you for many reasons. One of which is because of you, I became a adjunct faculty instructor over at Touro College of Osteopathic Medicine. I'm the director of professional communications, and I thank you for that because it's wonderful working not only with the faculty, but also being around the students and also being able to make a contribution to the community. So,
yeah, absolutely. And you do all those things. And we should also point out that you and I actually spent a lot of time together when you were my voice coach, voiceover coach. And we had just a wonderful time. I think I was your third favorite student. The first two we won't reveal, but there was that. Do you remember that one student? And we can mention her name. She was just absolutely fabulous. If you remember her now, I can't quite remember her name. She was also an actress, a singer. I believe she used to do gigs in the Village, singing and so on.
Oh, gee.
It'll come back to you.
Yes, it'll come to me. But yes, she was also one of my favorites. Yes.
Yeah,
but,
she was amazing.
Yeah, we had, for the folks who don't know what the heck we're talking about, for many years, I taught voiceover acting, and having been a voiceover performer myself for decades, I thought perhaps I'd start Voiceover Academy, and I would have my voiceover classes, and we would have these scripts, and we'd act out various characters and go through various commercials. And it was always fun to have Dr. Jeff step outside of the box and become other characters. And very, very nice, Dr. Jeff.
Well, I'm glad I got to break out of the box. Don't get me started.
Yeah. Well, hey, I tell you what, why don't we take the Wayback Machine?
Okay.
And let's go back to the beginning for Dr. Jeff. Before it was Dr. Jeff Gardere, where did you grow up and how?
Well, my parents are from Haiti. You know, they passed away many, many years ago, but I'm a first generation American. And grew up in Brooklyn, born in Manhattan, grew up in Brooklyn, spent most of my life there, ended up going to Brooklyn Tech High School, then University of Rochester. And then I landed in a very interesting place, G. Keith,
Really?
Washington, D.C., where I went to graduate school to do my PhD. And man, I was in love with that town. It was civilized. There were building restrictions with regard to how tall they could be.
Mm-hmm.
It was the chocolate city, that there were so many people of color, did so well. Entrepreneurship, working for the federal government. Everyone got along very, very well. It's not the way that in some ways we see the politics have taken over many parts of our country. People got along well. It was just an incredible, incredible place to be. And the people were friendly. I really loved it there. And it was very difficult for me to come back to New York after finishing graduate school. But that old saying that if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. I took on that challenge. There was an individual by the name of G. Keith Alexander over at WBLS doing his thing. And I was like, you know what? I'm coming back to New York.
See, that's why I love you, Dr. Jeff. That's why I love you. Wow. So, all right. So then you got back to New York, and how did things start developing for you here in New York at that time? You must have been, what, about 30 years old or so, maybe?
Well, I was around, how old was I? I guess I was around 28 years old.
Mhm.
And I had just minted my PhD in clinical psychology. And I came to work for an organization called the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Now,
Really?
this was it. This was interesting, G. Keith. If you work for the Federal Bureau of Prisons, no matter what your position, if you're a corrections officer or correctional officer, if you're a warden, if you're a teacher, or if you're a psychologist, you have to go through law enforcement training in Glencoe, Georgia. And so here I was learning how to shoot guns, learning jujitsu, learning sword techniques and how to use batons and all this crazy stuff. And I was the biggest geek, on the planet. We talked about Mr. Peabody offline.
Right.
I was this Mr. Peabody, but I was learning all of this law enforcement and fighting techniques and so on, just to work for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And it was really a very memorable kind of experience. I was the first Black chief psychologist for the Federal Bureau of Prisons, worked right in New York City at the Metropolitan Correctional Center. At that time, we had the Gambino family in there.
Wow.
We had, a lot of the super mobsters, the Godfathers and so on. So I would meet these individuals, many of them are dead now. And it just was a fascinating experience. There was a prison takeover down south. I was sent to go, and on the spot, I learned hostage negotiations.
Wow.
Really, my life was on the line, as well as that of all the other officers, walking into tear gas and all these different things that we had to learn how to do and maneuver around. So that was a very, very, I learned a lot of things, but it wasn't just about psychology. It was about, the prison system, and how, even though the Federal Bureau of Prisons was considered to be very civilized, but the fact was that many of the prisoners, especially down south, were people of color, and, the dynamics of, the prison, the school to prison pipeline, especially in DC with the Youth Act and so on, how very young people were going to jail in droves, young Black males, and, then connecting with them and seeing a lot about their lives. I didn't grow up that way, but to see the poverty, to see, how racism destroyed these individuals, and then to help them build back up, it really was a very, very special time.
I never knew any of this about you. It's amazing now for me to sit here and look at you and then process all of which you've just said about learning how to be a
corrections officer.
Yes,
Yes.
incredible.
Yes.
So, all right. So now you're in your 30s. How did you get this moniker of becoming America's psychologist?
That was a long, long way off. I guess what happened was, after I wrapped it up with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, I went to work for Kings County Hospital, in Brooklyn, and had a good position there. Came back to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and then went back out again to work for different organizations, and finally opened up a very interesting, it was a very interesting, I've got to tell you this story. So I'm sitting in my office, I have a private practice, someone comes through the door. This is in downtown Brooklyn, Fort Greene, before it was cool to be in Fort Greene. And lovely, lovely person walks in and states, I'm working with this foster care agency, St. Christopher Otley, that's located down the street. Would you be willing to see one of the children in therapy? I said, sure, absolutely. As God is my witness, it went from one child within the next week to 10, within the week after to 20, within the week after that to 30. By the end of the year, we had maybe 300-400 children, because then I just opened it up to all of the other foster care agencies. So here I am minding my own business, very small private practice, seeing maybe 10 people a week. And then I had to go out and hire close to 40 therapists and opened up all these locations. And
Really?
And it was happening. It was happening, and we were doing really good, relevant cultural sensitivity, cultural competent work. And, ended up moving to Yonkers, I'll tell the story. Ended up moving to Yonkers. I had a 4 or 5 Mercedes-Benz, Jaguars. I mean, I was rolling in the dough. And just like that, within 6 months, everything caved in. New laws were passed in New York as to phasing out a lot of the smaller foster care agencies, where I was getting a lot of my clients and doing really good work. And then, they started consolidating. I don't know if you remember this, Administration for Children's Services. And so the money dried up. Sold everything, gave away the cars.
Wow.
Everything. So I went from riches to rags, sort of. But I mean, and I like to say, I wasn't broke. I was, kind of white folks broke. I didn't have a lot of cash, but I had properties and, certain things that sustained me. But it was such an experience, and it was so much fun. And the moral of the story is things fall in our laps while we're young. But if you don't maintain them, if you're not thinking in a business sort of way, if you're not diversifying, if you don't know what you're doing, if you're not getting an MBA, all of it can be gone. And that's basically what happened. The fact is I didn't diversify. And so gave it all up, walked away from it. It was, and said goodbye to it, and then went back to being a regular guy. And it was the greatest experience in my life to go from being very wealthy to being extremely not wealthy. So it was an amazing experience, but it reset me for a work ethic and finding different ways and learning about survival, which is what I've done for all of these years, constantly reinventing myself and having had at least 10, 12 different careers.
What an amazing story. I mean, cheese and crackers. That is quite a lifestyle, going from living high on the hog, as we would say, down to
riding the hog. I couldn't even afford a car at that point. Giddy up, hoggy.
Well, I've had our good friend Rolanda Watts on the show several times.
I love me some Ro.
And she talks about reinventing one's self.
Oh my
And
God, she's done that like in aces.
oh, yes, yes. But now when I talk to her and tell her what I just learned about you, she's going to be amazed. She might want to get you on her Reinventionist show.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, she's amazing. I just love her. Both you and I have known her for many, many, many years. She's just an amazing individual.
Without a doubt. So, all right. So now we've got, well, all right. So now you go from that lifestyle to to, like you say, riding the hog, but then you still become America's psychologist. You're still revered, and you're constantly on CNN and MSNBC and
Well,
H.
the story behind that, do you remember a fellow by the name of Richard Bay?
I remember the name.
He had a show called People Are Talking
Oh,
that
yes.
was out of New York. And it was this talk show. I think that was, that came before some of the really outrageous, talk shows. And, the hook on this show is he'd have these really kind of crazy guests, with these really crazy stories. And every time you would sit down, he'd do like farting noises. And so on. So I went on his show. I filled in for Dr. Craig Polite. He had a show, and you remember Craig Polite? He had a show from the Apollo called The Third Eye.
Yes.
And he said, "Hey, man, fill in for me." I filled in on that show. We had such a great time. The phone never stopped ringing. And I got on, like, from that point on, it was the media then sustained me, because even though all of the material stuff was gone, the money was gone, the fact was I was still relevant and still getting 1 million calls a week to do TV. And so that just built everything back up again. So it's been a heck of a ride. And that's where I started on television.
Okay, well now we're getting ready to go to a break, but we'll be back with more very interesting stories from Dr. Jeff Gardere. I want to remind you, though, to make sure you go to harlemamerica.com to find out what's happening next week. Harlem Week begins August 6th through the 15th, and you'll find all of the information about Harlem Week on our website at harlemamerica.com. So go there, and we'll be right back with more of my friend's life and lifestyle, Dr. Jeff Gardere, on What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander. Okay, that's Kever Bernard. Thank you so very, very much, Kever. She's a wonderful voiceover artist as well. Now, hey, Jeff, before we get into the real serious issues of mental health in our communities and some of the things that are going on, we'll talk about that in the next segment. However, I do want to touch on how you have expanded your career and gotten into I don't know if you want to call it reality entertainment or, but you have an extensive career in some of the love and hip hop shows in Atlanta and New York, and the Real Housewives of Atlanta and the Potomac. Tell us now, how did that get started?
I have to give all thanks to God for one, but I also have to give all thanks to Nene Leakes over at the Housewives, franchise, and she's very, very powerful there. She actually saw me on TV and decided that I should be the therapist, the family therapist for her particular family unit, which I did some of that. We did two special shows on that, and then kind of just went right into the general Housewives of Atlanta, and we became frenemies, right? She was so PO'd with me that I just didn't take her side right away, and I wanted her to take a look at herself a little bit and take some responsibility. And I got to share this story with you. Sure. That so I'm sitting with all of the housewives and I'm doing this therapy session, and this is being recorded. And so Nene gets upset. She gets up and leaves. And I say to myself right then and there, there's my career. It's over. I didn't manage this. The best thing that ever happened in my life was when Nene got up and left that therapy session because all heck broke loose. Then they got me back to talk with her again and try to make up with her. And it just was the drama. And that is the genius of Nene Leakes. And of course, her husband, Greg Leakes, who became also a very good friend. And they just kept bringing me back. And we're still in contact to this day. We still talk. The other person is Mona Scott Young from Love and Hip Hop. She created that particular franchise and started having me on the different Love and Hip Hop shows. She's a Haitian sister. She's doing amazing things. She's a director, a producer, was the head of Violator Records. And then we started co-hosting the Haitian Roundtable, which is this very elite Haitian group, part of the Haitian diaspora in the New York area. And so she just kept giving me opportunity after opportunity. And then, of course, it just opened up everything. All of the true crime shows, all of the relationship shows. So in many ways, I became the go-to guy for every reality show that was out there. Now, here's the funny thing. Other psychologists, social workers, and so on, when they would see me, they would look at me as if I were a piece of cow manure under their feet. You like the way I use these, right?
Yes.
Because they would say things like, that you are dragging down our profession. It's outrageous. You should be ashamed of yourself. Look at where you're taking psychology. You are slumming it with our profession and so on. Let me tell you right now, people in the mental health field are paying a fortune to get people to get them on those shows because they know what it does for their practice and what it does for their reputation. So,
incredible.
Now I can laugh, when I think about that and realize that, again, everything is in divine order.
Praise God. Well, for those of us who, who don't watch as much reality as possible, how are those shows set up behind the scenes? Are they told to cause conflict and confusion? Do they really dislike each other, or is that all part of the act?
Well, let me put it like this, right? You're asking me if wrestling is real, and I'm not going to comment on it. Of course, it's real. People get hurt, right?
Right. Okay.
But this is the way it works with reality TV. The way it works these days more than anything else. These are real lives, real people. Okay. And they know that in order to stay on these shows and not become a friend to the show, right, where they come on only once in a while, but to be a real cast and a regular cast member, there's got to be something interesting about you going on. There's got to be drama. There's got to be fireworks. So in many ways, think of a spotlight that you have on you, 12 hours a day. And in order to keep that spotlight on you, you have to show your best, you have to show your worst, but you've got to be on. And I think that's a lot of what we see. If that spotlight, if that camera wasn't on you, then you would be much more calm. But because you are fighting to be on that show and to have a reputation of being a tough person and that you bring the excitement, that's the way you begin to live your life. Think of it as the fight or flight response that we have, but that fight and flight response is on all the time. So it's a mixed blessing. It really is a mixed blessing, G. Keith, that these people can, and it's not like they make a lot of money. Nene has made a lot of money, and was paid a lot, one of the highest paid people. But it really is about having an opportunity to market your brand. And that's how they start all these other businesses. So the business is not really in what you get in a paycheck. It's how you are able to market yourself, get a national or international brand, and then be able to, gather the riches in that way. So it's a very complicated formula. It's a very intricate game. Some people have won and some people have lost, by addictions, by losing marriages, and so on. So as we like to say, actor beware.
Wow. Okay. So that now, So now, are you on any shows in currently, or have you taken a hiatus?
Um, I'm not on any shows that I can think of right now. I continue to do a lot of the news shows, a lot of the internet shows, because everything is internet, as you know right now.
Right.
TV is not what it was. I said to one of the medical school classes, "What have you been watching on TV lately?" They said, "What's a TV?" Right? They don't even watch TV. They watch their phones, they watch the computer screens and so on. But now my life is, I like to say I'm not thirsty. I'm not interested in doing so much in the media as I once did. My life more is dedicated to my family. I'm 65 years old now. I don't want to fly all over the place and spend, time away. I have very small children as well as adult children. So now it really is about teaching at the medical school, but also I found, the industry of telepsychology to be amazing. I've teamed up with a company called My Telemedicine in Texas, and we have an incredible telemedicine business that we're doing all over the United States. I'm also working with My Roman. If you remember, Roman, gives,
Oh yes, so that's the erection company.
for erectile dysfunction.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
So they've rolled out something called Romind, and I'm part of that, and I'm part of the advisory board. So, my mission now is to bring mental health services to as many people as possible by just clicking onto their keyboard and being on the computer, getting it on the computer. And here's the thing, it really is an extension of what I was doing on all these talk shows, because even though a lot of my colleagues put me down for being on these different reality shows and talk shows and so on, it built me a practice that has withstood the ages and still does. Never have to advertise. People know who Dr. Jeff is. Thank goodness for that. And so now it's about working with students. It's about working directly with individuals in this pandemic who really need help. That's my mission now.
That's because Dr. Jeff is what's hot. Okay.
Maybe not as hot as he used to be. Lukewarm, but doing okay.
Now, okay.
Don't cry for me, Argentina.
Get down. So now talk about you're the author of 4 books also.
Right. I'm the author of several books. One book is a reincarnation of the other, and I've contributed to many, many books. The last one, The Cause of Autism, that we wrote right there at the Touro College of Osteopathic Medicine. And, doing more research and really getting into now in my old age, getting more into the scientific research, getting into the teaching, getting into doing workshops for many different people, around the United States and around the globe. And that's what's really eating up the time more than anything else.
So I believe, as we were trying to think of the young lady's name before, Rhea, is it Rhea?
That's
Alexander?
right,
Rhea
That's
Alexander,
right.
yes.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Okay.
No relation to the great G. Keith Alexander.
No,
that I know of.
No, but you never know. Back in
Right.
those days, they separated our families, so we don't know.
That's right.
But in any case, so now let's talk about what's happening in the Black community as far as mental health. Now, we do know that there's some issues that have happened recently on the world stage in the Olympics. Simone Biles, also Naomi Osaka, and also was it Sha'Carri Richardson?
Richardson. Yep.
Yes.
Mhm.
Let me have your thoughts on the 3 of those talented young ladies.
Well, they have differing stories, of course. With Miss Richardson, what happened with her was, yes, she had a mental health challenge when she found out that her mother had died, someone she was estranged from for quite some time. But of course, that was still her mom. And she found that out during an interview with a reporter. And she says that she had a very quick and powerful nervous breakdown, and she turned to a self-medication of marijuana, and of course that disqualified her, from competing for the Olympics, and was not chosen to go to the Olympics. And I think a lot of people, G. Keith, really felt that maybe they were a little bit too tough on her. But here's what I admire about her. She said, even though I felt it was a little bit unfair the way that I was treated, I take full responsibility. I'm not trying to cop out. I did it. I'm guilty. I will pay the price. I've learned the lesson of my life, and I will never do this again. But what it did for the rest of us was showed us that these superstars, right? Sha'Carri, Naomi, Osaka, Simone Biles, these are real people who have real issues like all of us do. Right. And they have 10 times the stress that most of us do because they're on the world stage. And so now more than anything else, and what we're seeing with Simone and Naomi is that they are putting their mental health ahead of the money. They are saying, you know what, I'm not feeling this. I'm having a mental health challenge. I've got to take a break. If I'm not winning, it's not worth it for me to continue moving in this way. I've got to retreat. I've got to take care of myself. And quite often what we've seen, G. Keith, with athletes, elite athletes, they take care of them. They feed them. They make sure they get the money. Not so much with college football. And, that's a whole other issue, of course. But, they make sure that, they have the best physical conditioning there is. But they're not getting enough from the sports psychologists. They're not getting enough as far as their mental health, because we know that there is a connection between body, mind, and spirit. And if any of those components are not working, then it affects the others, right? So you go from working on 12 cylinders down to 4, and that doesn't work with professional sports. A lot of people gave Simone Biles a very hard time. They sent her, not very kind words. People were elected officials, had said very unkind things about her and so on. But she made it very clear, I'm feeling a certain way. Physically, I don't feel well. Psychologically, it's affecting me physically, and I need to step back. And I think everyone needs to respect that. But what they're not talking about, these women, the intersectionality of being a woman, treated as a second or third class citizen in this American society, the fact that they have an incredible amount of stress, the intersectionality of not being just a woman, but a Black woman. And there are other, factors that they go through, which, I think we really need to look at. But with Simone Biles, this is a woman who tells us, we saw it on 60 Minutes. She was emotionally abused by her early coaches. She was physically sexually abused by the team doctor. Her mother was on drugs for a very long time, and thank goodness she's doing better now. But that was another stressor in her life. Her brother was accused of murder. He was found not guilty recently, which is my understanding. But all of these things, and then the stress of being the greatest athlete for now on the face of the planet, all of those things would make anyone super stressed out. And so we've got to understand, if someone says, hey, I got to take care of this, I need my checkup from the neck up, and I need time to get myself together, you've got to respect that. And she's a role model. Sha'Carri Richardson is a role model. Naomi Osaka is a role model with regard to not only being an elite athlete, but an intelligent one who tries to take care of their mental health and talks about it, smashing that stigma for the African-American community, but smashing that stigma for all of America and the world.
Dr. Jeff Gardere, that's why we hold you in such high esteem, because you have a way of getting to the essence of what the problem is. And many times we see you on HLN and CNN and MSNBC and the the Fox Business News and all these other stations, getting to the solution of the issue as well.
That's
So
amazing. You hold me in high esteem like that, G. Keith.
I certainly do.
It's probably because you're not married to me. You should
Yeah.
hear what my wives have to say about this.
Well, maybe that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So, all right, we're getting ready to take a short break right now. I want to remind everyone that we're here with Dr. Jeff Gardere, American psychologist. And I also want to remind you again to make sure you go to harlemamerica.com, because Harlem Week is coming up August 6th through the 15th. And those of you who come to New York, especially for Harlem Week, we want you to be able to know exactly what the events are that are going to take place. So go to harlemamerica.com, and you'll find a lot of our podcasts from some of our earlier guests on the What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander. Right now, I've got a little frog in my throat. It's been there all morning. But in the meantime, in between time, don't go away. We'll be right back with my friend, Dr. Jeff. Okay, so welcome back. We're here with Dr. Jeff Gardere, who used to be the host of, was it Dad's Camp?
Dad Camp on VH1.
Yeah.
You had to bring that up, right?
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about.
Oh, that's a good story, right?
All right.
So I'm in the gym working out. As you know, I work out 7 days a week. You know, I'm addicted to exercise. And so I get a phone call after years of auditioning for all these different, you know, shows and so on. I get a phone call and the person says, hey, you know, we'd like to talk to you about this new show we have called Dad Camp on VH1. We've seen you on all these different shows and we'd love for you, you know, to come out and do the show. I said, I'd love to come out and audition. When you know, where? And they said, Los Angeles. They said, but by the way, you're not auditioning. You got the gig. You know, put us in contact with your entertainment lawyer. We'll sign a contract and get you out here, you know, to cut a demo and just go ahead. And so we did. It was fantastic. VH1 picked it up. We did the show and it was a bomb. And I mean a bomb, a stinking bomb, right? And the people on it were absolutely fabulous. The producers were fabulous, but the formula just didn't work. It just didn't work. And the timing wasn't good. This was a time when VH1 decided, hey, you know what? Instead of doing all this trash TV that they were doing, if you remember,
I remember.
We want to be a more humane and loving and instructive kind of show. So we're going to put together this show called Dad Camp and help all these single fathers and not exploit people of color and blah, 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 blah. Let's get this guy, Dr. Jeff Gardere. He's so healing. In the middle of the production, VH1 changes the programming and says, nah, let's go back to the trash TV. And so the show wasn't picked up because it was a feel-good show. It was about helping people with parenting. A bomb for them. You know, it just didn't bring the excitement. But you know that old saying, it is better to have loved than never to have loved at all. That's right. So, you know, that was my show. I did it. I enjoyed it. And there have been other shows since then. And actually some shows that I can't talk about, some things that are happening in the future, working with some really good people to bring in more content. And so we keep our fingers crossed for that. But the bottom line was that one was one that didn't make it. And G. Keith, you know this, you know, we see all the success that people have, but they don't talk enough about the things that don't work. But at the end of the day, those are experiences that are valuable experiences that take us where we need to go and prepare us for the next chapter.
That's right. There you go. Exactly. So, Jeff, speaking of the next chapter, you have become a lobbyist of sorts.
Look at me, Mom. I'm a lobbyist at 65. Yes. Holy smoke. I think that's the 18th job I've had.
Well, hey, and you are doing it for a very good cause. You are working
Yes.
with compassionandchoices.org. Tell us about
Yes.
this.
An incredible organization made up of these professionals who really do believe in bringing the message that we must have advanced directives in our lives. It's important. And what do we mean by advanced directives? Well, when you have that living will, you talk about, well, if something happens and, I am no longer in charge of my body, or I need to be intubated, to have these directives as to what happens to you. Who is your proxy? Who will take care of you? Who will make medical decisions for you? Do you want to be intubated or not? If it goes to the point of where, for example, you can no longer give direction as to the kind of care that you need, what kind of care will be there for you. Is hospice something that you want to look at? Right down to medical aid in dying, which is not physician-assisted suicide, but if you are in a state that does allow medical aid in dying, you have no more than 6 months to live, that's been certified by 2 physicians, you are in just horrific pain, medication no longer working for you, there's absolutely no hope that you're going to go further, that if you are mentally competent, again, established by 2 physicians and or psychologists involved, that you can actually get a prescription if you need it, if you've lost all quality of life, and you must be able to take the medication yourself. No one can give it to you. You must be able to take it yourself. You must be sound of mind, and you can be able to transition in a peaceful manner. So those are some of the things that are out there that they are working on, getting people information as to the importance of hospice, much more information as to end-of-life care treatments, the importance of, making sure, that your family is involved in your care and so on. So it's a tremendous place to be in right now in the space that I'm in, given that I am now in my mid-60s and have put together my living will. And I know what I want for myself as far as the quality of life, because I can see the light at the end of the tunnel more than I did when I was in my 30s. Don't get me started. But it really is about, quality of life from cradle to grave. So a lot of people don't think about death, and true. You should, because it's coming one day.
That's true. That's true. So this job as a lobbyist then takes you back to your wonderful Washington, D.C.
Most of the work is done in New York State because we're looking to get legislation passed in New York. We have medical aid in dying in New Jersey and 11 other jurisdictions and states, or even 12. New Mexico was the latest one. And so, but it's not just about medical aid in dying. It really is about advanced directives, living wills, helping people who have Alzheimer's, or if they develop Alzheimer's, how they can get the best quality work. So it's really an umbrella of taking care of people, who are now facing, the end of life in that part of where they are. But we talk to people, very early on in their lives about putting everything in place with regard to, end of life care, possible hospice, your proxies and so on. But a lot of my work is working with, as a lobbyist, is working with Black clergy here in New York to get the word out on advanced directives, to work with Black people who don't know much about hospice care, who don't know about palliative care, who don't get that information, who die in ICUs instead of getting stepped down medical care, who are continually treated to the point of where treatment doesn't help anymore, but they're still, getting very painful treatment, and they don't realize that they don't have to do that, that they can then go into hospice, or that they could get hospice care at home. So this is another health disparity for people of color and Latinx. We do not use hospice care, advanced directives, all of the other things that we should know about. So part of my job is educating our New York population of people of color, but as well working with the clergy, so the clergy can work with their people, with their parishioners, with their worshipers, to know about the importance of good end of life care, quality care.
I am so glad that you're here to discuss this, because Harlem America is the total Black experience in entertainment, empowerment, and health and wellness. And this is our health and wellness segment, where you have laid it out for us what we should really be considering for our end of life care. I see from you, Dr. Jeff, a new product or service, Dr. Jeff's end of life kit. Where you have all the forms and and some videos.
Well, that's but that's actually what Compassion and Choices, that's what they do. They give all of this really incredible information. If you were to develop Alzheimer's, how do you get the proper care? How do you fill out a living will? How do you get a proxy? What should you do as far as financial planning, so your family are not left in a situation of where things go to the state and then they have to fight to get the resources back. So it really is about really comprehensive care around end of life, because that's a very special time, but it needs to be a time of dignity too.
So plug the website one more time for our viewers.
It's compassionandchoices.org. Go there and you'll find so much about kits to help you as far as establishing a living will and so on. Everything is there. It's user-friendly. And I urge you all to find out about what all your options are and what all of the incredible medical treatment you can get when it comes to end-of-life care.
So let us now talk about how should we address or treat or socialize with folks who are resistant to getting vaccinations during COVID.
This is a big problem, right? We know that we can, and I know we don't have much time left, but we can cut this into a couple of different slices. As a person of color who works with cultural sensitivity, cultural competence, I work with our medical students, as you know, in helping them understand health disparities and the mistrust that people of color have for the American medical system, where we've seen a medical apartheid, where we've seen the Tuskegee experiment, where we've seen, many, many horrors around medicine. Now they're doing much, much better at the Touro College of Osteopathic Medicine. We teach about racism and bias. We teach cultural sensitivity, cultural competence, serving the community. That's so important. But, we know that there was a statistic that said roughly half before the Delta variant, very early on in the pandemic, and I think the statistics have gotten better, that half of the people of color would not take the vaccine. Now, what that does, of course, is now we see more health disparities because of that. People are dying disproportionately, getting the vaccine, not getting the vaccine proportionate to having the disease, getting COVID. So that's a big problem. So they're not offered the vaccine as much. Now that's changed, of course. And so we must work with people of color, marginalized people, convincing them to get the vaccine. And then we know what's going on politically in America. There's tribalism in the politics, and there's a death cult, if you will, with some particular politicians following a particular leader. I don't need to mention names. We all know who we're talking about. And now finally, we find that particular party is telling people, yes, please get vaccinated. Okay. It's not about the politics. It's not about a feeling of superiority. You don't have to do this. People are dying. The virus continues to proliferate. Now we're dealing with this Delta virus. We know that there are going to be other iterations of this virus. So people have to get vaccinated. They have to put the politics aside, the hate aside, the distrust aside. And the way I think we need to do this, G. Keith, is we need to understand what it is that bothers them about the vaccine, what their fears are about the vaccine, and validating as much as possible all of those fears, but approaching them with kindness, approaching them with empathy, approaching them with respect. But of course, as the federal government is doing, in making sure that we give as many incentives as possible to take the vaccine. But here's the major incentive, okay? Saving lives and crushing this virus. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Put your fears, your politics aside, get vaccinated so we can bring America back to where it really needs to be as far as health.
And Dr. Jeff, we're going to have to leave it right there. This has been a wonderful opportunity to sit with my friend and discuss your life and lifestyle and your commitment to mental health. I really appreciate you taking the time. We've got less than a minute. Is there anything you'd like to say in 3 words?
Thank you, G. Keith. Put G and Keith together. That's 3
All
words.
Right. Well, thank you so very, very much, Dr. Jeff Gardere on What's Hot Harlem, America with G. Keith Alexander. Have a great day and a better one tomorrow. Don't judge your brother or sister too harshly until you walk a mile in his or her shoes. And I'll see you next week on Harlem America Digital Network. Bye.